Wilkie then.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I think it's fair to say it beggars belief that the government would be contemplating expanding significantly the cashless debit card system when what we've seen so far has been so problematic. I would have thought it would be much more appropriate for us all to come in here in a collegiate way and to discuss ways to remedy the current arrangement, or at least give it more time, the current trials to have more time, so that we can understand what we've got better and can indeed remedy it in the future before we even start a conversation about legislating to allow it to be rolled out in broad geographic areas. There's already a lot of evidence in that is pointing to the fact that this is not working as it intended. I mean, for a start, the survey results are showing that about 75% of the members of the community who are carrying these cards are telling us they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't gamble, they're not on drugs, and they can't for the life of them understand why they are being punished in this way and being forced to lose their independence and to be forced to carry one of these cards with the limits it places on those people. Of course, that means that 75% of the people carrying these cards haven't changed their behaviour, because there's no behaviour to change. We've also learned already that this is very expensive. In the two trial sites at Ceduna and East Kimberley, over 2 years, it has cost about $10,000 per card to establish and maintain the system for those cards. I mean, that's ludicrous. That's an absolutely absurd amount of money that is being, I suggest, wasted in the pursuit of the current arrangements. And I'll go further, Deputy Speaker. What we've got currently is frankly racist. Let's not kid ourselves here. Let's not mince our words. Let's not forget the origin of the cashless debit card system. It was part of the Northern Territory intervention. It was a racist policy, and I think it is reasonable for people in the community to be concerned that it will continue to have a racist element or undertone to it, because it will be more likely to be expanded into geographic areas with Indigenous communities. So, you know, it's too blunt an instrument. It is covering too many people that don't need or shouldn't have one of these cards. It's too expensive and it's racist. No wonder, Deputy Speaker, there is such concern in the community. And even in my electorate of Denison in Tasmania, as I go about my business, I am routinely confronted by constituents who are concerned that the cashless debit card is coming their way. They've seen the way that this government and the previous Abbott government have responded to the community with quite frankly, a real ideological vendetta. And they've seen any number of other changes that have happened with the welfare system in this country that give them reason to suspect that the cashless debit card is coming their way. I mean, we've just got to look at the way the government under-resources Centrelink. Last financial year, 55 million calls went unanswered at Centrelink, an increase from 29 million the year before. We've had the robocalls scandal. We had the policies and the attempt to implement policies that have focused unfairly on people who need the disability support pension, people who need New Start, people who need youth allowance. We've seen these task force integrity letters go out, co-branded with the Australian Federal Police logo. I mean, no wonder members of the community feel that this government is waging an ideological vendetta against anyone in the community who needs some help from the government in the form of a pension or payment. And I tell you what, a disproportionate number of people who have expressed concerns to me about the cashless debit card around Hobart, they're older Australians, because they've also seen the way that this government and the previous Abbott government have gone after older Australians, the way super's been changed, including defined benefit pensions, the way the access to the age pension has been reduced, the way funding of aged care has been slashed. So, Deputy Speaker, this is now about a lot more than the residents of Ceduna or East Kimberley, or the residents of some small areas that the government might want to talk about. This has become an issue and a concern for many Australians. including many Tasmanians, who I think are quite understandably concerned that they're going to be lumbered with a cashless debit card themselves one day. Even though they don't smoke, they can't afford to smoke. They don't want drugs, they don't gamble. You know, they're responsible with their money and they appreciate the money that they receive from the taxpayer. And they're worried that they're going to be lumbered with a cashless debit card as well. And make no mistakes, Deputy Speaker, if this bill becomes law, it will authorise the government to roll out the cashless debit card across broad geographic areas, virtually wherever it wants. It is a slippery slope. I notice, Deputy Speaker, that some speakers have already spoken, I think quite rightly, about the need for other government responses to what are often complex problems in the community. Why isn't the government talking about reforms to reduce the rate of alcoholism in this country? Why aren't we having a conversation about advertising and trading hours and the taxation regime for alcoholic beverages? Why aren't we having conversations in this place about more effective ways to deal with drug abuse and the ice epidemic in this country at the moment? Why isn't this place doing anything much about gambling reform? I mean, instead of going after all of these people, most of whom don't have any problems with any of these substances or gambling, instead of going after them, why aren't we putting in place sophisticated solutions, Deputy Speaker, to what are complex social problems? Alcoholism, domestic violence, gambling addiction. You know, for a brief moment, like a falling star, there was a conversation the other day started and quickly ended about a sugar tax. Why aren't we talking about those sorts of things? Why are we talking about fixing the taxation regime on alcoholic beverages so we don't have this ridiculous arrangement at the moment where someone can walk into a bottle shop and walk out with 5 litres of cheap wine for $11? No wonder we have alcoholism. They're the sorts of measures that this place should be talking about and the sorts of issues that this government, with the support of the opposition and the crossbench, should be addressing. And while we're at it, Deputy Speaker, let's not forget that the main reason that people who rely on a government pension or payment, the main reason they get themselves into financial strife is that they're not getting enough money to live on, to live a dignified life. Why aren't we having a conversation about raising the level of government pensions and payments so people in this country who need a disability support pension, who need youth allowance, who need New Start, who need the age pension, so that those people can live a dignified and reasonable life? Heavens, Deputy Speaker, we can afford it. You know, I don't know if people in this place understand, we are the 13th biggest economy in the world. There's almost 200 economies in the world, and we're the 13th biggest. You know, our national wealth per capita is second only to the Swiss. Second only to the Swiss. So by that measure, we are the second richest country in the world, not the 13th. Surely we can afford to have sophisticated solutions to complex social problems. Surely we can afford to ensure that everyone who relies on a government pension or payment receives enough money that they can live a dignified and nice life. Because the fact is that people who rely on government pensions and payments need pensions and payments. They're not dole bludgers or some other form of bludger. Almost all people on the disability support pension desperately need the disability support pension. Almost everyone who's on New Start desperately needs New Start. Just about everyone who's relying in part or full on the age pension needs every dollar of that money. They're not bludging on the taxpayer. And I think it is downright scandalous, Deputy Speaker, that this government, the Turnbull government and the Abbott government before it, have waged such a crude and shocking ideological war against the disadvantage of this country and against the people in this community who need some financial support. We can afford it. We're the 13th richest country in the world. We're the second wealthiest people in the world, national wealth per capita, after the Swiss. We can afford it. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.